Welcome, everybody, to another Cleanfax KnowHow webinar on the future of training. And it feels like every month we do another one of these, and every month the need for better training and to think more thoughtfully and methodically about training just grows and grows. So today we're talking about how to build training programs that drive retention and career growth, very strongly correlated with your worker tenure and everything from customer satisfaction to your Google reviews to your efficiency and average revenue per head count. So it affects every area of the business. And so I'm excited to have a good discussion here. If you are just tuning in, let us know in the chat where you're tuning in from. Love to know the company you're representing, what city you're viewing this from. And as always, we're going to prioritize questions from the audience. So if you've got questions related to today's subject, please fire them in the chat. I've got some excellent, high quality guests. I'm going to pump your tires right off the bat. And so excited to have Leighton Healey, CEO of KnowHow, joining us. Zac Johnson is a certified executive coach specializing in employee retention, strengths-based development, and dynamic motivation. Great and excited to get his perspective. And then Ken Carlson tuning in from Utah, general manager at Alpine Cleaning and Restoration. And so really good stuff. And guys, right off the bat, I want to kick things off with just a question to you. I sent over some questions to work through in advance, and I've already gone off script. So it's been about 45 seconds so far. We're going to think on our feet. But Leighton, I want to know, obviously, KnowHow is in the training, development, and equipping employees space. I'm going to ask all you guys this. I'll start with you, Leighton. Why are you so passionate about training workers? Why is this such an important subject to you?
So for me personally, I've experienced what it was like to go from young guy, new guy on the tools to growing all the way up to running and owning. And so I'm the byproduct of training programs, right? I'm the byproduct of training programs. And I've built entire organizations where we just made the decision that rather than having to, buy that top talented person, graft them in and actually hope that their skills, in a sense, actually jive well with our culture, I made a decision a long time ago to say, I'm going to learn how to build talent. And that is one of those just, I would say, critical tool belt skills that if you want to be a world-class leader today, is you need to know how to build talent. And that's very critical because one of the strongest macro factors impacting service industries today is that you have this transition happening. You have this transition where so much of the talent, so much of the experience is locked in the heads of experienced Chuck and Sheilas and Stews, and they're beginning to transition. And a lot of them aren't leaving their knowledge behind. And then coming up from behind are a lot of, what I've often referred to as the unhandy generation. A lot of young individuals who I would say are motivated. They don't want to work in retail. They want to get out of the fast food. They want to get out in the sunshine, but they didn't grow up necessarily with a dad with a tool shed in the backyard or a set of grandparents that had them come out to the farm on the weekends. So at the end of the day, there's a significant skill gap. But at the same time, technology is bridging the gap, and technology, is enhancing and really changing the game, and we're a big part of that at KnowHow. So I'm passionate about it because I've experienced good training. I'm passionate about it because I believe in it. I make that investment in my team, but also because I think that it's an extremely timely topic. And if you want something that'll separate you as a great builder, a great leader, is to be a great builder of people.
Hmm. Yeah, that's so good. Thanks, Leighton. Zac, how about yourself? What was it about training that drew you to it, and why is it something you're so passionate about?
I think progressively it starts to overlap with what we would probably classify as like modern education. And in the sense where there's a lot of people, especially maybe Gen Z, that tends to actually learn a lot of life skills and to define a bit of a purpose. So we're seeing less people go to university for the long haul, college for the long haul. And I think that the trades are a lot of time where people come for a paycheck, but they might stay for a purpose if the training is in line with really transferring a lot of good skills.
Ah, that's great. Come for a paycheck, stay for a purpose. It's a good quote.
I'm ordering the t-shirt right now.
I was going to say matching tattoos, anyway. Ken, how about yourself? What was it about training and equipping your people that of all the things you could spend your time on as a general manager, why is this something that you're just so passionate about?
Because I can't deliver a good product to homeowners if my people don't know what to do. So like my whole focus on training technicians to estimators to project managers, they all need to know how to deliver a good product and a consistent product across Alpine so that homeowners are getting professionals and experts when Alpine shows up at their door.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Hey, and
and
that
Ken,
go for
people
it.
don't want to. I mean, people don't want to feel like a dummy, right? Like at the end of the day, young people and people of any age, um, they want to feel confident doing what they're doing, right?
Well,
And you must see that.
for sure. And in restoration, you show up to homes that are 100 years old, the same day you show up to a home that was built last year, right? So you have to be an expert in residential, commercial, and every type of home from every generation. And like you can never have enough training for that. Like, and not only the home, but then you have to know what about all the stuff inside the home? You need to know all the contents. So like you can just you've never arrived in restoration because tomorrow they're going to be building something new and something else gets a year older. So just always staying up on training. Like we've got to be experts to deliver a good product.
Yeah,
Ken,
yeah, well said.
let me I don't know if we are all familiar with this term steel man. Like let me make the strongest case for what a lot of people in the restoration industry advocate for, which is what I would call like a minimalist training. Like what's the least amount of training that I need to give a worker before they head out to a job site? And so the argument there is turnover is super high in the restoration industry. And I can't take my best people and constantly be pairing them up with someone who is only going to be maybe at my company for 6 to 8 months before they leave somewhere else. There's too many curveballs in the restoration industry. I just need to get productivity out of this person as fast as possible. And so, therefore, maybe I won't really invest in formal training. You're not making me money if you're sitting down in front of a computer screen going through some LMS. And so that's why I just need to send you out onto the job site and go out and ask questions. Ken, dismantle that position for me because I think that a lot of people, that's where they come from. And maybe they've been jaded over time by high turnover rates. But help me understand why Alpine really takes a different approach when it comes to training and equipping their staff.
Well, for one, Alpine doesn't have a lot of turnover. Even with our techs, we're here for years. Our managers are here for decades. Like if you're having high turnover, I think you need to look in the mirror for one, right? So like we want to train people as if they're going to be here for years and then they're here for years. And hopefully those technicians that are the good technicians that are here for years turn into our managers who are here for decades. Right. So our approach with our technicians is yes, we need to get them that initial orientation done so that they don't show up completely ill prepared. But after that, the training literally never stops for us. We do it at every single level of our company. Our technicians are being trained, in my department daily, and then as a group with the ops every single week. Same with our management group. Like we never stop training as a group because for one, it brings us together, and it presents a lot of problems that everyone can bring out as a group. But just putting somebody in the field, not expecting them to know much, you're not going to get anything out of that employee. And they know it too. Like if they know that they're just here to carry out all the Cat 3 bags, like they're going to bounce pretty quick. Like you're going to get out of the employees what you put into them. So you're setting yourself up for failure, in my opinion, if you're just hiring them to get them there for 6 months and then they're going to bounce for 6 months in 6 months.
I think that's such a strong mentality, Ken, of train people as if they'll be here for years, and we're probably far more likely to be there for years if you do that, right? If you expect, hey, we're going to invest in you as if you're going to be with us for a very long time, that has a very strong influence on the length of time people will be with your company. And so, Leighton, let me throw it to you. Why should companies bother investing in long-term training? And I think there's certainly a like, in tech we use this term minimum viable product. What's like the least amount of work you can put into an app just to ship it? In the training equivalent, maybe what's the least amount of training I need to give to someone in order to get them to successfully fulfill the requirements of this job? Why would you advocate going far beyond that?
Well, because I think fundamentally, most people, especially managers and leaders, um, don't like being in a perpetual, I would say, state of chaos and panic. That's not very motivating over the long run. They want to build an organization that creates a good life for them and their loved ones. They want to be able to enjoy what they do. And living in the vicious cycle of just the meat grinder that is turnover with managers and senior technicians who just live with this learned helplessness that people aren't going to stick around. So, why invest? They just like, how did I get here? Right? Like this is not fun. So fundamentally, I mean, as a business owner, as someone who has influence in a company, someone who's incentivized by, some level of, variable compensation, you start to say like, man, just for my sanity, I have to get off this hamster wheel. So at the end of the day, like there is a vicious cycle that businesses fall into which is essentially, like the comment was made, and I just to build on what Ken's saying is what Ken is outlining is the compound effects of a commitment to this level of support and training and investment over years. But at the end of the day, like I suspect that would have started in a place where they would have had to say, we should make this decision, we should make this investment. And so what a role model. Now, where does that start? I find that even the best training program, and I'll just say this really concisely, the best training programs will not survive contact with a poor hire. But at the end of the day, what you need as a manager, what you need as a leader, what you need as a senior technician, what you need is you need time. You need time to be able to develop people. That's why you train. You train because people stick around when they feel confident and they're not getting chewed out all the time. But also you train so that you can build capacity and independence and autonomy in your staff and so that they can go about delivering on executing on their responsibility. So I can focus on what I'm supposed to do as a manager or senior technician, which is really maximize outcomes, improve operations. So think of when you're developing a learning and training program for the first level, I would say, how do you actually, in a sense, put something in motion that gives you the time you need to over a time period, strengthen and evolve and I would say deepen that training program. Understanding that where you first invest that time, so you start training people, what do I do with this little morsel of time that I have? Improve your selection process. And as you start improving your selection process and stronger talent is coming into this growing training mechanism, well, those stronger hires are going to naturally respond to that investment. And you're going to start to see more and more good hires receive good training and they're going to stick around. And that's going to create time for a leader. And that time, what you do with that time, do you finally go fishing? Do you finally get time to, go and catch up on your hobbies? No, no, use that time to now double down and invest in this training infrastructure that's going to create more time.
Hmm. Zach, I want to ask you, we're talking a lot about the benefits from the manager's perspective, from the general manager's perspective, the owner's perspective. What difference have you seen when it comes to employee engagement and employee enthusiasm and an employee's motivation to bring their best self to work and really give 110% when they see a roadmap of training that goes beyond just the first 2 to 4 weeks on the job?
Well, I'll maybe narrow that and I'll speak a little bit to kind of the age range of like 18 to 28, because I find that there's a higher correlation of frustration sometimes, especially in that kind of Gen Z group. And one of the things that I've seen a lot is that Gen Z, like authentic development pathways and personal growth really signal to them that there's like a long-term path here for them, that they're more just than a cog in the machine. And so there's a high loyalty correlation to that. But there's a lot of, especially in the trades, there's a lot of young workers in that 18 to 28 range that are super skeptical of traditional employment. So when you demonstrate that you're going to invest in them, even if they don't come with a 10-year plan, it builds trust and it slows, like Leighton's talking about, the churn of that retention game.
And just to build on what Zach's saying, what I've seen is that you see three benefits. One, benefit number one, you tackle the buyer's remorse that a lot of staff have. Holy smokes, what did I get myself into? Right? Number two is you build retention stamina. Retention stamina, I think, is what you're describing, Zach, is essentially today was a tough day, but because they visualized what the roadmap looks like, I can contextualize this sucky day and I can say, I can see how there are sunny days ahead. But when my weather app is only today, weather representing how much fun I had at work, then it's like, man, you know what? I maybe this is what it's like. So that retention stamina is a huge component that training roadmaps provide contextualization. And then the final one is that, and I think that this is a key thing, what Ken made a point earlier is something that I think is just it's so unique to property restoration. And well, not necessarily unique, but I would say it's exaggerated in restoration, is the variety of work and services and substrates and job sites that you see. Um, and when you don't have a clear roadmap, what I see is you build these Swiss cheese staff where you think you've trained them, but really what they are is staff that have all these gaps in their learning. And then you wonder why they're bombarding their supervisor with calls post 90 days. Well, it's because, your training wasn't robust and fulsome. In fact, it just gave all of these, there's all these gaps in their training where only a robust training roadmap, I think, really, in a sense, helps you know that they know. So to me, those are the three things. You address buyer's remorse, you instill stronger retention stamina, and you avoid these Swiss cheese staff.
Ken,
If I
I
was
want
to say
to.
one thing to
Oh, go for it, please. Yeah, Zach.
just add quickly to that, like we're beyond kind of the point of like, hey, you can't just say you could be a foreman someday. Like you need to show them what 6 months could look like, what 1 year, what 2 year could look like, what skill building and certifications and training, etc. Because I think there was a point in time which you could say, hey, one day, but one day just doesn't fly anymore.
Yeah, I agree. And actually, that's great, Zach. You're teaming me up. Ken, I want to ground what Zach just said in reality for a restoration company that's doing this right now. And so help me understand. I'm a new water tech that's joining the team at Alpine. How do I understand like my path to getting skilled up in my role? Let's say I'm one of the 52% of Gen Z workers that are joining the restoration industry without any background in general construction. So I don't even know a lot of the things that new water techs 15, 20 years ago might come onto a job site knowing for the first time. And so help me understand, how am I getting skilled up in my role? But then to the point of what Zach was saying, how do I understand what the next 2 to 5 years look like for me at Alpine? Can you just walk me through, if you were sitting down next to a new water tech, being able to bake out that roadmap so they could see their growth and their skill development over the course of my time at Alpine?
Yeah. So every technician is going to be paired with a project manager. And then we have certain criterias of technicians, right? You start on as a journeyman, and then we have a roadmap to become a master technician. It's clearly defined. I mean, these are things that you need to know, this information and this information, how to handle this situation, clearly defined. They check that off with that manager. They jump into the next criteria, right? So they're within the technician advancement program, they know exactly the things that they need to be learning. So that's very specific to a water technician, right? But at Alpine, we do split things out to where we have a contents team and a fire team and a water team. So like these guys get extremely good at what they do within their world. And then the last step for them is becoming, an expert that can handle all things at Alpine. so that you could send this expert to a contents job, to a fire job, to a mitigation job, and it's all spelled out, right? So, but that's not the only training they get, and that's oftentimes at their pace, right? So if they want to jump into it and advance quickly, they absolutely can. If they just want to go slower, that's at their own pace. But then every single week we're getting together with all the ops individuals, and we go through a training every single week as an operations team. And we have those set out about a year in advance. We're on a rotation about every 9 months because we noticed that all of our trainings were always reactionary. Oh, we had this problem, so now we need to train on this. Well, we were never proactive in our training. And we would also think, man, we just taught that. And we look back in our records and we taught it 2.5 years ago. And so we identify like the most, the 20 most important things that we do not want to lose track of. And those are the things that once a week for every hour, we do that training. And then they're going to get that same training in 9 months or sooner. So that they're always getting that information. And as a manager, we're realizing, oh, we thought we just taught that recently. It has been years since any of these technicians have actually heard it. So I think the technician advancement program is very defined. The weekly training that they're getting is very defined. And then on my team, obviously, we do our standard operating procedures. That's just a 3 to 6 minute know-how every single morning with my team. These are just quick little refreshers so that they're always thinking about it. So and then from the technician, obviously there's the management program, and our goal is to always hire a good manager based upon our best technicians. And from a mitigation manager to an estimator to a general manager, and when you start hiring from within, like we post all hirings within the company first, and it's almost always going to be a hire from within because we've been developing this program, and it's quite remarkable. So, and I can go into more detail if that's wanted or not, whatever you guys want.
Hey, we're going to keep coming back to some of those threads, Ken. But if I can highlight some of the themes that I heard you share, in that first, you give employees the opportunity to develop mastery in a certain area, right? You
Yeah.
allow them to become craftsmen when it comes to contents or fire or water text. This is not just a general one size fits all, and then you get to any specific job site. And because it's nuanced and the restoration industry is complicated, you still feel like you haven't learned, anything compared to all there is to learn. You allow your employees to develop those niches and start to go deep and really make themselves experts in a certain area. That was one of the things I heard. The second is you allow them to influence the timeline of increasing those skills and growing in that mastery. So the super gung-ho employees that are really motivated, you give them the ability, hey, you set the pace. How quickly do you want to go from a journeyman to an expert? You get to influence that. And there's so much behavioral research that's been done that when people are in charge of their own learning path and when they feel like they have autonomy and they have control, it just adds an extra layer of motivation. And then it sounds like, Ken, you guys really focus on how do we keep training front of mind day in and day out. So you're saying, every day you just take 3 to 5 minutes, you review a know-how process, and it just orients your team around continuing to sharpen and refine each other day in and day out. Yeah, that makes total sense to me why Alpine is such a leader in this area. Zac, I want to throw a question to you. You had this great quote at the very start of this webinar. You'd said, hey, come for the paycheck, stay for the purpose. And so what I want to know is I'm picturing that scene in Indiana Jones where he's got that like gold statue and he's trying to weigh the sand to make sure he can like swap it out just right so to not trigger that giant boulder. And I think there's probably an element of that you have to do as a manager because a lot of workers, especially in the trades, are not showing up looking for passion and looking for purpose. They're looking for a paycheck. And so over time, you have to start to sell them on that and help them understand, hey, there's something much more deeper here than just getting paid every 2 weeks. So how do you do that as a manager and really start to help them see the purpose and the passion that can emerge here when they were only looking for a paycheck at the start?
it reminds me very quickly of a book Cal Newport wrote, So Good They Can't Ignore You. And he's talking a lot about the fact that people have a really bad understanding of what they're generally passionate about. So to that, I would say, like, you don't need to want a career to grow one. You just need someone to show you what's possible. And I think that gets overlooked a lot.
Mhm.
That, like, the reality is, if I'm careful as a manager, I can expose a combination of different opportunities to somebody, and I can show them that, hey, it's in all these micro moments of learning, a little bit like Ken's talking about, where it's consistent and it's relevant. And what happens is it starts to kind of unfold all these intermingling paths of what could happen. So I think it's less of kind of like a, hey, I need to like swap it out, and more of I need to showcase that I can swap a great many things out here. Because a lot of people that 18 to 28 range especially come in and go, I'm going to actually typecast this. I'm going to reduce it to just a job and not recognize what career potential awaits.
And if I was to build on what Zach's saying, I think what Zach's saying is really important. And let me make this comment, then I'll put it back to you, Zach, is what I see a lot in especially younger workers, people say who are maybe, under 25 or 30, is that they have this perceived optionality that sometimes social media puts in front of them, that there's just so much optionality. And then really when they drill in, well, they hit some kind of paywall and, oh, okay, so that drop shipping person needs me to sign up for her course. It's like, so there's this perception that there's lots of optionality, but really when you say, okay, well, say some caring relatives say, I understand you're going to be this influencer, but like just walk me through it. Just here on this pad of paper, just walk me through the steps. And that's oftentimes when that perception of some path forward breaks down where, well, I actually really don't know how to get there. One of the things that I've seen that really surprised me was I started to see companies create case studies on their own staff where they would say, hey, I want to talk to you about Maria. And when she came to us, this is kind of where she was at, career, skill, state of life, and now look what, 2 years later, just 2 years going through our training and development, just 2 years being on our team, look at the responsibilities she has, look at the outcomes that she's experienced in her personal life, look at the responsibilities and now the certifications that she's earned. And it shows them, very tangibly, what the byproduct of being part of this company can produce in your life. And they'll create these case studies of their own staff. And it's been really interesting to see the reaction of staff who come in with this sense of probably an overestimation of their own ability, but fundamentally not really clear on how to get to where they want to be. And to your point, Zach, not unclear as to really kind of what success, what the path to success looks like. But when you show them someone that they may even be able to relate to, it shows them something that I think it can create that internal drive and that internal desire. What do you think?
Absolutely. Because I think that to illuminate it, I was reading something the day where it's called the coffee beans procedure. And there's a chunk of young people kind of in that, we'll say 18 to 28 range again, that when asked, will say, oh, I'd like to run a little coffee shop one day. And so you get that parent or that older individual is like, okay, great. What kind of coffee mug is best? How much does an espresso machine cost? Are you going to bake your blueberry muffins in house? Are you going to buy them from a third party? What software do you want to use for your point of sale system? What do you do when your assistant manager calls? And they're like, blah, blah, blah. And if you aren't thinking of those things, then actually the idea of a coffee shop is a really dumb idea. And so companies, especially in the trades world, that actually have it broken down as optionality with internal case studies do incredibly well because it's like you could be like Joe. Joe was in your shoes 2 years ago, or you'd be like Tom. Tom was in your shoes 2 years ago, or Bill or Susie or whoever. But it becomes really relevant, very concrete, and not this ethereal thing that one day I will be this successful, quote unquote, whatever it may be on Instagram.
Mm. Ken, do you have any case studies on how Alpine builds people?
I mean, I think it definitely starts with like finding the right people,
Mm.
right? Identifying the right people in the interview is important. And then getting them on the team, making them feel them because technicians, I think, and speaking to a restoration world, like we send these people out after hours. We send them to do crazy things. If they don't know what they're doing, one, they're delivering a really poor product, which just creates more time, problems for everybody else, and a frustrated homeowner, right? So if these technicians, if we're giving them the skills to be able to go out and do a job efficiently, because they don't want to go out at 2 a.m. and have it take 6 hours when it could have taken 30 minutes if they knew the right tools to use, how to use it, they can be in and out so quick. So teaching all of these technicians how to do their job, what tools to do their job quickly, like, and that's when the company starts making more money too. You start getting everyone efficient. They know what they're doing. They're trained well. They know how to talk to the homeowner. And one thing that we've kind of missed is the soft skills, right? Because there was Alpine had a lot of problems with, we knew what to do. We just didn't know how to say that to the customer, right? So now we've implemented a soft skills training company wide once a month for our Thursday training, and that's things like leadership, communication, and it's we kind of follow the Disney model of like you need to play that part. So the case study, I'd say one of our handymen does a great job, horrible with people, right? So we started off this soft skills with a 6-week communication class. And this was all about how do we talk to customers? Because the customers are going through a horrible experience themselves, right? So soft skills is such a huge part of this industry. Like you almost have to be a therapist that first night, the first week, the first month until you bring them down. So teaching them the tangible skills and then being able to communicate that to homeowners who are in a bad way, like it it changes technicians. They grow as a person. They grow with their skill set. I mean, I could name a lot of different individuals, but I won't bore anyone with anyone in particular, including myself. So
Uh,
yeah,
But Ken, I'll just say quickly, one of the things that I've noticed is that people seem to be so starved for any type of like soft skills or like just communication training in their lives that when you invest in that, it naturally benefits their personal life. And
hmm
then the workplace becomes the source for, let's say, the approach that resolved the conflict at home, right? Or what normally would be a situation that would go this way now goes this way. And someone naturally says, where did you learn how to regulate yourself like that, or just, not blow your top, or just ask questions like that? They're like, oh, work, it's training, because we deal with these customers and they're also, and what I've experienced is I'm like, yeah, don't quit that job because it's making you a better person. Do you
yeah.
do you,
So
do you ever
so
experience that?
oh, uh, every one of us at Alpine are getting trained by therapists all the time.
mhm.
Dr. Craig Manning. I mean, he's the performance psychologist for the Bucks, for all of BYU athletics. Like we have to meet with him twice a month, right? So like as a management level, we're taking those skills and some of the soft skills, if you don't mind that we go over, it's like emotional intelligence, conflict management. How many times are your technicians out at midnight? One says to do it this way, the other one says to do it this way. They're all tired and hungry and they start yelling at each other. So like conflict management matters internally. If all your technicians hate each other, you're going to have a lot of turnover. But if you sit together in a Thursday morning from 7 to 8 a.m. and say, hey, let's talk about conflict resolution, like that helps everybody. Even it helps them at home as well. We talk about critical thinking, customer service, work ethic, problem solving, time management, teamwork, leadership, communication. I mean, these are things that we're hitting all the time because we can teach the skills. We also need to teach the soft skills that so many of these guys that can go, they can go do drywall really well, but they have no idea how to adapt or to manage their own time. So
Mm.
yeah, important stuff.
And Ken, I have to assume then, because even at the technician level, you're doing such a good job investing in the emotional intelligence and just all the soft skills of your workers, that when it comes time to promote into management, that gap is smaller than someone who's only had hard skills invested into them. And then they're finding now that I'm in a position where I'm managing staff,
Yeah,
all of a sudden I have no idea what I'm doing because I'm dealing with humans as opposed to mold. Is that fair?
for sure. Like, say you have an amazing surgeon at a hospital. and he's doing so good at surgeries. Would you take that surgeon and make him the CEO of the hospital? No, let that guy do surgery, right? So like at Alpine, the progression, like if you're becoming a really good technician, you're going to be now taking up some of these new hires. You're going to be training them on the skill set and also the communication, so that by the time they're now our mitigation manager, they've already been training. Like they're so ready to go. It's so turnkey. All it is they're driving a different vehicle now.
Hmm.
So
Yeah. Zac, let me throw a question to you. And it's actually really just pulling on this thread that Ken has highlighted, where I've seen two trajectories, and I've heard it described as your superstars and your rock stars, right? So you've got high performing people in both cases, and some are superstars. And so they are just rapidly like increasing responsibility. They're able to take on new leadership. And that's just like that classic, oh, I started as a water tech and 15 years later, I'm the president. And then you've got your rock stars, and they just want to be rocks. Like they just want to be strong, deep, technical experts, both very high growth, very able to take on a lot, very, very smart, but just different career goals. And so how do you build training and development for those two people, depending on where they want to end up at, either super deep technical expert or super high career ladder trajectory?
Well, I'm sure Ken can talk to this as well, but much of it is very contingent on that connection point. And I know a lot of different people use lots of different assessments, whether it's like DISC or Keirsey or Myers-Briggs or whatever it might be. But it's the recognition that, hey, I'm going to have a conversation. You're really good at this. And there's some validation there. And if you enjoy it and you're good at it, actually it behooves you to become the surgeon in the, proverbial hospital than it does to be the CEO of that hospital. Because we have this idea that every promotion needs to be up the ladder and not laterally. And I think that's also deeply problematic. That I just need to go up instead of becoming incredibly skilled, well known. And there's the benefit of we'll say the branding dynamic, right? Like clients are going to appreciate the surgeon, so to speak, who's really good at surgery and who's been invested in a team that has a lot of great retention and training tactics.
Ken, how do you guys think about this at Alpine? When you've got someone who just like they just really want to be the best contents person at Alpine, how do you continue to motivate them and build into them, despite the fact that they don't necessarily see themselves as a future GM one day?
yeah, no, I have a gal on my team who started with me 8 years ago. She was the best technician I ever had. So after 3 years, I'm like, you are so good. Let's like we moved her to a different position. She was good there, and she tapped out at Alpine, right? That next position wasn't available. So there was an adjuster position, a really good position. I recommended her. They took my recommendation immediately. So she gets this huge promotion with the insurance company. She comes back to me a couple years later. I hate this. I'm not happy. And I felt bad, right? Because I thought I was helping her because it's a big pay increase. And she says, I just loved what I did. And
Mm.
so she's now back with me as a technician. And I screwed up because I didn't understand her, right? I didn't know what she wanted. I thought money was her solution. It wasn't. She loved what she did and she was so good at what she did. But if you don't know your people, and you won't know your people if you have turnover every 6 to 9 months, like you can't get to know what their fears are and what their loves are and what do they like to do and what do they like about this job, what do they don't like about this job. Like you got to learn, you got to know your people first. And I think sometimes trainings now are too oftentimes not people to people. So Alpine has a really good mix of even when we're doing know-how trainings, it's not I send somebody in a room to go do a know-how training. We as a group, everyone pull up your know-how. Let's read through this together. Do a refresh because you're all there's that connection as a group of people and Alpine is a family. Like we know each other, we care about each other. When someone has a bad day, we rally around them. When someone does something great, we rally around them. So I don't think that I think you've got to keep the people in the training. And obviously our morning trainings are together, our weekly trainings are together, our monthly trainings are together. Um, yeah, know your people, love your people.
If I could just jump on, as Ken, as you're talking, two things came to mind. One is I know what it feels like to to think, man, if eventually this person, if I just keep investing in them, there's not going to be a role for them to move on. I'm going to lose this person. What 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 unwound that frankly dangerous mentality is creating a system of building talent, because you love your people, you love your rising stars, and you don't want them to leave, but at least you know you can build the next one, right? Because you built the infrastructure to build people. And so I find that sometimes rising stars, the transition can be ugly because you didn't really have a repeatable methodology for building the person who comes up below them. And so there's all this regret and resentment that they're leaving and after everything I've poured into you and stuff like that, as opposed to saying, hey, the door is open and I hope you'll come back. Because what I've experienced is that a lot of companies think about developing what you're talking about, Ken, but they never actually do it. And so when you actually do it, you're such an outlier as a company that when people leave for these perceived green pastures, they're like, holy smokes, right? Like, and they'll come back, right? And they'll say, you know what? We'll come back because a few years ago we did a study on it was the largest workforce study ever in restoration. We wrote a book called Why Workers Quit. You can get it on, Spotify. We have paid an actor to read it. And one of the things we learned is that, yeah, for technicians, the number one thing that drove their application was posted wage. But you check in with them just like 5, 6 weeks later, and in terms of why they're still there, wage drops way down. And it's about the team I'm part of, what I'm learning, the responsibilities I have, the culture that I'm part of, and wage is important, but it's interesting, especially with this workforce. And Zac, you probably have more of the data, but this workforce, there are cravings for self-actualization, for a sense of belonging, for a team where I feel respected and cohesive. And it's not all about just the comp.
Well,
Yeah.
can I bring it? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go for it, Ken, please.
Well, you mentioned something. You said something that piqued my interest of like why would people not do this? I think one, it costs Alpine a lot of money. I mean, we have 100 people in a meeting for an hour. Everyone's clocked in. Like it costs a lot of money. But to me, that is we're getting that money back within a day or two on productivity and lack of turnover. The other thing I think prevents a lot of people from holding these trainings is there's always something. There's always a flood. There's always a meeting with an adjuster. We live in the emergency industry, right? Like you get the call to go do a board up. Oh, sorry, we've got this training. You just lost out on a $500,000 job, right? Like, but at Alpine, we if you can be there, you're there, and if you have to be somewhere else, then you check with your immediate manager. So like we have a culture that you are there, but we all understand that like we have to pay the bills. So if I'm gone, we don't cancel the meeting. I'm not the one doing the trainings. I did several for a while, but then you train that group below you. They're the ones actively doing the trainings, and I get to go participate. The senior level leadership, we do the soft skills trainings for now, but that'll be passed down as well. But there's always an emergency. But there will always be something. There will always be a reason to cancel the training, and you just can't get in that. You need your president, you need your owner, you need the next level of leadership to get behind this. And if they're not trainers and teachers, you've got the wrong people at that level. Like they've got to love their people and they got to love teaching them new skills, because new skills, it invigorates your brain, it invigorates your mind. You want to stick around, you want to be continually learning. So that's definitely what we push for.
And let's continue to just ask the question, Ken, exactly what you posed. How can all of these plans and these intentions survive reality in the restoration industry? Mike Tyson had a quote that said, "Everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the face." And you could say everyone's got the perfect training program until a cat event or until a storm comes in over the weekend. And so, Leighton, I'll throw it to you first. Then, Ken, I want to continue just to pull on this. What are the ways that companies can ensure that their training and development plans, though they're made with the best intentions, don't fall off the rails in the reactiveness and the busyness of the day-to-day in the restoration industry?
Well, people in this industry are very practical. Like they understand, like, yeah, I understand, but in reality, this is how it actually rolls out. And so I would just take a pragmatic approach. So what do we know? What we know is that there are forces at work. They look like the supercomputer in your pocket right now that have given us this unconscious behavioral preference to just not archive knowledge like we used to. So pick a study, there's lots of studies, and they all say the same thing. Especially the emerging workforce, they just do not retain information that their brain deems non-critical or knowledge that I believe I should be able to find this and reference this later. So I think that any investment, any investment of training or time, I think has to be complemented with some type of a tool that is going to be on the person and be able to accommodate the fact that people not only do they forget what they've been trained on, but they even forget the technical questions that might return a search query to them. So, I mean, hey, I believe in this so much that like I invested time and capital and to build and to pull together a solution called KnowHow because at the end of the day, I've experienced what it's like to be part of a team running thousands of workers where you invest in their training and then you show up on the site and be like, this isn't what the way I trained you, right? I say, well, I don't remember any of that. I didn't sleep well that night. So I think pragmatically, you have to say training today, just to be pragmatic, has to be complemented with a digital tool that's always on their person that allows them to ask simple, sometimes silly, and sometimes dumb questions, get reconnected to the training and the guidance that I went through to be able to follow along with it. And I think for people who have the responsibility of the ultimate outcome of the project or the file or the job file, for them to actually take their hands off the wheel and allow that person to deliver their aspect of it, they need to be able to know, are things being done the right way when I'm not there? And so I think that again, that's where a tool can complement it. So hey, let me be the guy to plug KnowHow. I mean, that's what KnowHow does. So it's, I mean, it has a whole bunch of other stuff, but I think that you need to be able to complement your in-person training, complement those shoulder-to-shoulder moments with the ability to say, and hey, and when I'm not here, go ahead, type it in. You don't even know how to spell desiccant. It doesn't matter. Type it in. There you go. That's our process for how to get this thing going. That's how you create containment. So when I'm not here, that's the process. And so I think that's a critical component. There's other things, but I will put it out to the other guys.
Ken, I want to pose the same question to you. I think of these places where you've got, tornado-resistant buildings, hurricane-resistant buildings, earthquake-resistant buildings. And basically what they said is, hey, we know earthquakes happen here. And so we're going to build the structure in such a way to be able to withstand the earthquake. How have you built, hurricane, cat event, reactive, resistant training at Alpine? Because we just know in the restoration industry, those are table stakes. So how do you build training structures that are able to withstand the chaos of the industry at Alpine?
Great question. Because when the big money's there to be made, you got to go get it. And so there are times where we cancel meetings. Well, let me rephrase that because I said we will never cancel the meeting, but we may postpone it. Right? So you just got to come back to it. Now the problem is that Alpine lived in this space for a long time. We'd think of a training program and we'd implement it until we had a CAT event, and then we didn't do these meetings for 3 weeks, and then we just never came back, right? So what we did is we said, here's the schedule, here's the people in charge of these trainings. Do not ever let go of these trainings. So it became a responsible person's responsibility to never let go of that. And so we kind of divvy up these really important things that we say, this is the core of our business we can't lose track of. One of those things for me is Google reviews. Like with our exec team, like I make sure we get our Google reviews and I will not let go of that. So you need to identify somebody. And if it's the president of the company or your ops manager who says, I value training, but if your ops manager and your president doesn't value training, this isn't ever going to stick. And you're going to have the turnover. You're going to have the people who do give a really poor product on a job and it doesn't stick. So I think to withstand the storm, it's got to matter to you. And it probably won't matter to you until you see how much good it can do. And you won't see that until you give it a shot. So, and I do want to echo off of what Leighton was saying, like, because there's always going to be those times where technicians have questions and they don't know or they can't get a hold of me or their direct manager, having this database of you can search all of Alpine's procedures. I can't go ask Google or Grok, like, hey, what does Alpine do in this scenario? They don't know what we do, but KnowHow does. And KnowHow can tell you, type into our KnowHow, like, hey, should I pack out candles? Hurry and checks it. No, you should not pack out candles because they in storage or in the box truck they melt. Well, Grok's not going to tell you that. So there is a place for all of this to come together, and it comes from a place of caring about your people. And if you care about your people, you're going to train them to be skilled, intelligent human beings, and then give them great tools. So don't let the catastrophe stop the progress of training, or else you're dead in the water.
Great. That's good. I'm thinking of some kind of slogan, don't let the cats out of the bag. I haven't figured out what the bag metaphor is, but there's something there. We'll come back to that. We've got lots of great t-shirt ideas. We've got a good question from Gabriel in the chat here. He says, I've got a staff that used to not be the best, but in past years really become standout on the team. While I see the change, it's been difficult to change upper management's previous perception. How can I get them to see that this employee is worth investing in to further their growth? Zac, I'll throw it to you first, but then we'll also want to get the full team's analysis here.
I mean, there's probably a lot of context here, but I think so much of it is, hey, like, do we believe that some person can be static, that they can't just have a bad year, that things can happen, and that they can't also find a degree of purpose that they didn't see before? So I think the idea that we're stuck in the first impression dynamic is obviously a little limited, but I think it's heavily contingent on also people seeing a path forward. So we're talking a lot about retention as an overall theme. And so much of the time, people will start a job thinking, oh, it's just this, it's just X. I'm just, painting a wall or whatever it might be. But then over the course of it, I meet some great people. It reminds me of the dynamic of the 5 salaries that your job pays you. And we've been talking about a few of them. There's obviously the financial dynamic, but then there's the dynamic of the learning capacity, the skills that I get. Are these skills going to help me grow? Who am I connected with socially? The network? Am I building relationships that matter? And then do I feel like what I do matters? And then the last one is flexibility. So I think sometimes people can come in, sort of be, half-assed about it, and then see a purpose that wasn't there before because they were exposed to a path that they just didn't know existed.
Leighton, yeah.
So what comes to mind for me, and I like that, the 5, we got to get a infographic on that, Zac.
5 salaries. I like that. Yeah, that's another webinar right
I
there.
can already picture it, but sounds like a white paper coming to you soon, folks. But Gabriel, I empathize with the managers in this scenario that you're creating because I've been that person, being like that person. We're talking about the same scoundrel, right? That did these things, like, oh, but they've developed, right? I was introduced years ago to a model of trust. Just picture a triangle in your mind's eye, right? Where one component, and really what we're trying to say is, well, what are the components of trust? Competence, common sense of purpose, right, and character. And so what you're describing is this person is competent, so i.e. we should trust them. But what you have are managers who probably think back to times where they said their behavior or decisions did not reflect, right, a common sense of purpose, or maybe there was something that caused them to question their character. I think what you're experiencing is a trust issue, right, where management says, I don't know if we can trust them. In your mind, Gabriel, it sounds like a big piece of trust for you is competence. Does this person know how to are they good at the doing? Do they know how to do the job? But you have to keep in mind that for management and for leaders in general, the question is, well, are they aligned? Do we have a common sense of purpose? And also, is there character there? And so I'm honestly, I'm just going to put it over to Ken when he talked about soft skills. Because when you want to get people to grow and evolve, and for us to extend some grace to them, I think that you can't just make them competent. You also have to invest in the ability for them to demonstrate good character and for them to be able to show alignment to the company. And to me, that's where you round out their training through things like soft skills. And as a company, you unpack for them and you transparently share with them the direction and challenge of the company. Because when you have staff who are in alignment with where the company is going, they know how to demonstrate good character and they're competent, those are trustworthy staff. And you give trustworthy staff opportunities.
Ken, anything that you would add to that?
Yeah, for sure. Gabriel, I would ask what they know that you don't know. Gather all the information first. Because your perception of this employee is your perception. I'm sure there's a lot of other situations that you may not be aware of. So I would gather all the information. And if you still say this is a person that I need to be successful, it doesn't hire them. Like promote them. Like if you're at Alpine, if I want to hire somebody on my team, I'm going to hire them on my team. Like uh so I don't know how much flexibility you have, but if you have somebody that's going to help your company make money, why in the world would they not get behind that? So I would understand and then go for it, and then you'll show them down the road why that was a good decision. Or if you made a bad decision, you're going to think twice and maybe not make that decision again. So
All right, one more rapid fire question from the audience. This one comes from Scott. And so Scott is wondering, how can you continue to incentivize and strengthen water techs? It feels like, Ken, we talked about this before, the natural trajectory some people picture is I start as a water tech and then I slowly get closer to management. If you want to build a culture that really rewards water techs for going deeper and becoming more and more excellent, how has Alpine does this? Because I think you guys have done a really remarkable job in this area.
yeah, and I kind of alluded to it earlier, but there's a program that you advance within the water technician position, which includes, better pay and things like that. Um, just making sure that they're gaining more skills in their respective field. I think that means everything.
And Leighton, it reminds me, you were telling us of this company maybe a month or two ago where you would have a different colored polo depending on your expertise and competency. Can you just give us a quick reminder what that dynamic there and how it rewarded people who were really experts in the company with, the kind of social status of being recognized by their peers as people who had gone deep?
Yeah, at the end of the day, there's nothing like a visual state change, for people on your team to look around and say, hey, that person, it has been distinguished. And so the company, they have a practice of, essentially there's kind of three stages. And as you progress in that company, through demonstrating your competence by proving that you can achieve, outcomes consistently, then once you are promoted, then not only does your title change, but actually the color of your company uniform changes as well. And so that signals to your customers, just look for anyone in a yellow shirt, right? But it also signals to staff. And that's a big thing, I mean, again, karate's been doing it for years, right? And companies oftentimes don't bring that over. You know, there's cultural dynamics there, but I think within a healthy environment, I think, Ken made a comment. He said we're a family, like we kind of, we mourn together, we celebrate together. So I think when you have that healthy community, and there's some type of a ritual of how those types of distinguishing jerseys are presented, and it's met with applause, it's met with enthusiasm, it's met with acknowledgement. I think that can be very healthy. But that's I mean that's a thriving organization, right? Who and yeah, and some of their shirts look different.
And go for it, please, Ken.
And I think if that works for their culture, that's awesome. I know at Alpine that's like completely different because my technicians wear this shirt. So every morning I wake up and I wear my technician shirt because it's like we distinguish ourselves by the value that we bring to the team. So I think it could go either way, and I'm not saying that is good or bad. It sounds like it works for them, which is great. I know at Alpine we all wear the same thing. We all have the same hats. All of our vehicles, it's just kind of the round table over here. So
I
a
think
different
there's a strong
perspective.
argument. I think there's a strong argument for both, for sure. That's great, Ken. All right, everyone, we are tight on time, but I want to cap. I just want to close this up nicely. And so we've talked about a lot today. A lot of these are cultural changes. And so I would throw the question to each of you, maybe 20, 30 seconds tops. What would you propose would be a good first step for someone listening to this webinar? It's very hard to transform a culture overnight, but what's something they could start doing tomorrow to just take a few small steps towards this larger culture of career development? Leighton, I'll throw it to you first.
Start by creating airspace. I would recommend a tool like KnowHow to make it easy for you to delegate things off your plate, but start by creating airspace. Use that airspace to outline what competent looks like for the 2 to 3 upcoming roles you're planning to hire for. Reverse engineer. Okay, so this is competent. Let's work backwards towards all and list out the skills and competencies that they need. Bake this into a simple roadmap. Again, I'd recommend KnowHow, right? But you could just do it on a piece of paper, right? And then roll it out. And then as you start to experience any type of time savings, invest that time savings into your selection process so that you're starting to attract and onboard stronger people. And then as you bring stronger people into an evolving learning and development program, tweak and modify it over time. And then when you have stronger hires in a strengthening learning and development program, to Ken's point earlier, is that you move from a person who had to walk by faith to walk by sight. And you're like, holy smokes, this thing is working. And then you start investing in this engine.
Awesome. Ken, let me throw it to you next. What's a small step that someone can take after listening to this webinar?
I mean, I think the step is know your people, love your people, and show that love to your employees by teaching them skills.
Awesome. Zac, how about yourself? Final word.
Oh man, I had to go last. Um, I think that most of it starts with recording some of the things that you want to train and then making a small amount of space. And the only thing I would say is start like record less than you want to begin with and train less than you want to begin with and just slowly add to it.
Yes.
Don't go whole hog out of the gate. If it's in a binder, it's in a binder. If it's on KnowHow, it's on KnowHow. But start small, almost embarrassingly small, and you can continue to add.
Yes. Yeah. Great. Ken, were you putting your hand up to contribute?
Yeah, I mean, if somebody really wants to know like our training topics that we rotate through on a weekly basis, then they could just reach out to me. So I could probably send those out to people that would be interested.
Awesome. Okay, thanks. And that sounds great, Ken. We'll make sure that people know how to get a hold of you in the follow-up email. For everyone who attended this, thank you very much for attending. We'll be sending out a copy of this webinar so you can review it or send it to your team. Other than that, let's end it there. I hope everyone has a great wrap up to their week. Again, we wanted to end on small steps to give you some clear action items if you chose to take them on how you could begin to incorporate the lessons from this webinar to transform the culture. Thanks to our panelists, Ken, Leighton, and Zac, and we'll see everyone next time.